Hello, and welcome to Coping Mechanisms, a show where we talk about difficult things while making adorable drawings. My name is Kat Randle. I'm an animator and an illustrator, and my guest today is my husband, Colin.
Hey, everybody.
That's Colin.
That's me.
And appearing briefly might be our cat, Marcel. Forgive us.
He likes to make noise.
He likes to make noise. He's very talkative.
There's nothing
cat.
to forgive. You get to hear cute cat noises.
Cute cat noises. So today, this is my inaugural episode. And the premise for the show is really just to talk about, originally it started out, I was thinking that it would just be political, but, topical, political sort of conversations that I've been having with friends, while drawing things that just make me feel better about the world.
This is important.
It is important. It is... one of the things that makes me feel better is drawing things and drawing cute things, and so that's what I'm doing.
So it's kind of like a unicorn chaser or like comfort food.
Yeah, like a blankie.
Like a blanket.
For adults.
Like a safety blanket.
Like a safety blanket. So, today, let's talk about guns.
Right, yes. So you had an episode involving a gun.
Yes.
Would you care to share that with the audience today?
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that lead-in, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, care to share. It's not exactly a fun story. Surprise, surprise. But, when we went back to Chicago for our friend's wedding, I was abducted at gunpoint and held for 2 hours in the back of a car and driven all around the city of Chicago and eventually downstate to Indiana, across state lines.
Right.
Thereby committing a federal crime. They stole all of my possessions and my belongings and abandoned me in an alleyway. And 2 hours of my life of being held in, at gunpoint. And it was a really harrowing experience for a lot of reasons. There's one thing which I will admit that, there is a sort of, there's definitely a privilege in saying that, this is the only real time that I've had, been held at gunpoint or, really had to deal with guns in my civilian life. And I'm certain there are many people out there that have had to deal with it far more often than that. And so, admitting that privilege, it's still a really horrible experience. And it's also something that I don't think, at least most of the gun people in my life, most of them come at it from, a more military aspect and less of a civilian aspect. Or, if the civilian aspect is more going to gun shows or something. But I don't hear a lot of stories of, actually encountering guns in their civilian life. Being held at gunpoint or something like that. By the way, I am drawing myself a little sea turtle.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should talk about your adorable little sea turtle here.
Yes. Here's my little adorable sea turtle. I think I'll name him Sebastian. I don't know why.
He just looks like a Sebastian.
He just looks like a Sebastian.
Oh yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
That's a good name for a little turtle.
A little sea turtle. And maybe that's my love of Little Mermaid kicking in, but...
Ah, yes. I was thinking Belle and Sebastian. Remember the old, not the group, not the band, but that was based on like a children's book. I think maybe it was French.
Oh, wow. I don't actually know that.
I think it was something like a boy and
You
his
learn
dog or
something
something.
new every day.
I know the internet is going to correct me on this, but I think it was like a French thing about like a boy and his dog or something like that. Belle and
Oh.
Sebastian. Anyway, you can look it up.
Okay. Well, I will now, because now I'm curious. Well done. Yes, this is my little sea turtle. Yeah, I don't know. Like you experienced this a little bit because you were at I was coming home from the bachelorette party, which was really just dinner. And you were still at the bachelor party
Right.
when
So
all
we
this was
were.
happening.
Yeah. Right. So we were in Chicago when one of our good friends was getting married, and this was the night of the bachelor and bachelorette party.
Yeah.
And I was still out with the bachelor at the time. I think it was probably close to closing, so it was probably like 1:31-ish.
Yeah, you guys were having a proper bachelor night. The bachelorette is a wonderful human being, and also, she's not much of a partier. So we had a quiet, nice little dinner, and it was lovely.
Yeah. But yeah, I got a call actually from a police officer while we were out at a bar.
Sorry.
Stop apologizing.
Okay.
There's nothing to apologize for. But yeah, so I got a call from a cop who asked me for my identity and asked if that was any relation to you, and obviously I said yes, and then he handed the phone off to me. But
Yeah.
that was its own sort of traumatic experience, but in no way, I think.
Well, yeah, we're not
compares to-
we're not playing like trauma, like comparison. Like,
No.
one-upsmanship.
I'm not interested
No,
in that. I don't think
no.
it's a productive conversation.
No, it's not. But like you're allowed to have your own, kind of experience of it. 'Cause,
Sure.
like the survivor feeling of like, or the feeling of being unable to help the people that you love when they're in a difficult situation. But yeah.
But so you never encounter guns in your sort of day to day.
No, I don't like them. I don't want them anywhere near me. And so wow.
But this isn't a thing that came about because of your experience in Chicago. It's something that you've felt since. I mean,
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, well, I was raised with a mom who, I was born in the middle of the night during a shoot-on-sight curfew. And my
not
mom,
in the U.S., I'm assuming.
Yes. Sorry, I was born in Beirut, Lebanon in 1982 during the middle of the night during a shoot-on-sight curfew, and my mom had armed guards escort her on foot to the hospital. So my mom came back to the States in 1984. And she had enough of guns. So I grew up without any sort of like gun toys or anything until she remarried. We didn't have any sort of gun toys. I mean, we didn't even have balloons because when they popped, they sounded like gunfire. Mm-hmm. So like there's the PTSD of that sort of experience, which is another layer to this. But yeah, but you had, you grew up in a military family.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, my dad was a career Army Navy guy, and my grandfather on my father's side, uncles, and I mean there were definitely guns around. Some of my earliest memories are being at my grandfather's house, and like very clearly there was like an area where he kept his guns, and it was in his bedroom, and it was like, so if you opened up the bedroom door, it was actually on the wall that would have been right behind that door, so it's not even in clear sight when you sort of go into that room, and that was always, I mean, it was very clear to us kids, and there were a bunch of kids sort of running around that place. From various uncles and relatives, but it was clear that we were not allowed to go anywhere near that. But guns were there, and when I was very early in my teenage years, maybe even like 13, maybe just teenage. My dad took me out hunting once, at least.
Not for you?
It didn't take.
No.
I mean, I I don't even know if I was a vegetarian at the time. It was right around the time when I went vegetarian. So the idea of killing birds or any animal really, and then that coupled with, I'm not a big fan of like loud noises.
Yeah,
Like loud,
that's
unexpected noises.
Yeah.
I like loud noises if I'm going to a concert or something like that and I know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
But the
Well, we
whole
can-
loud, kind of shockingly unexpected sort of noise
Yeah.
is not, I'm not a big fan of it, so...
I mean, that's a subject for another podcast or episode, webcast, whatever. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, guns have always sort of been around when I was growing up, although
Yeah.
not in any sort of, like, negligent or terrible way, I think.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, like, my grandfather, my dad, I'm assuming my uncles as well, like, anybody who I knew who had guns, I mean, they were all very well trained in how to handle those guns and you know, either kept them locked up or, you know, someplace where kids weren't, you know, supposed to reach or allowed to go. So
Yeah.
there's a big emphasis on, you know, safety.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing because, like, the narrative, obviously, as everybody knows from the NRA, is that guns don't kill people, people do. And like the other narrative is that like that criminals are gonna get their hands on guns no matter what. But like I'm like there is no reason that these guys like had to resort to illegal means to get their guns. No reason whatsoever. Like, and they were clearly from Indiana, which is another issue.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause, so like when I tell this story, there's an assumption that it feeds into, like, Chicago is a dangerous city and, you know, like, lots of guns in Chicago. And let me tell you, I love Chicago so much. But, like, it's, God, it's infuriating because, like, almost anybody who lives in Chicago will tell you that the like majority of the guns in Chicago weren't bought in Chicago.
I mean, you don't have to live in Chicago to know that. I mean, it
No,
was
but
even
like
just
most
very...
people outside of Chicago don't actually know that. Like,
Sure.
you don't certainly the statistics are there, but like
Sure, but the Times just recently published, I think it was the Times anyway, published an article about how, not even in Chicago, but I think the state of Illinois, something like all of the guns used in violent crimes in the state of Illinois, I think it's something along the lines of 60% of them came from out of the state. So, I mean, this is making national news, slowly. Perhaps, but...
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think... I don't know. I hate any time when I feel like I am, like, by expressing my... I don't know. By telling any story that I'm propagating this idea that Chicago is an inherently dangerous city. It's definitely not. It has its problems like any other city, but but also that's too dark. I don't know. Yeah, but the like so many of the guns are bought in Indiana. And this one was. And I think there's, like, this idea that, like, even if it is something to be regulated, that's something that the states should take care of. And, like, you know, Illinois and Illinois and Chicago in particular kind of show why that is a flawed way of thinking about it.
Because you can take guns from one place and
Yeah.
move them to another without having to.
You don't have to go through checkpoints. You
Right,
don't have
right,
to
right.
like relinquish your property at like the state line. Like you don't have to do any of that.
And I assume you aren't actually arguing for state-to-state checkpoints, are you?
No,
Or-
God no.
Yeah.
Like the states should be that way. Like that's the whole point of being, a nation of like states. That, but like
A republic, I think it's
a
called.
republic. But yeah, like it's more just that like it has to be a national issue because the states can't like unless you want like border security from state to state, like which would be a massive undertaking and God, it would basically just turn us into individual nations. And like
So this would have to be enacted on a federal level.
yeah, it has to be a federal level.
So I guess, I mean, the question that I think you're not quite
Sorry.
getting to, or not quite answering yet, is you don't like guns.
No, I don't.
I don't particularly like guns either. Are
Are
you saying
do I want a
there
ban
should
on
be
guns?
no guns?
That is my ideal world, and I feel like I get to say that is my ideal world.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get to have whatever opinion you want.
I
on the
know,
subject.
but like I just feel like that's generally used as you just want to take all our guns away, and like honestly, in my brain, yeah, sure, I would love that. I don't want. And not because I hate you, the gun owner, but because I just don't think I don't see the purpose in having like. But like again, this is me. This is my personal opinion, and I recognize that I am not the only person who lives in this freaking country. So like, I'm not gonna force anybody else to think that way or to live that way. But like. Can we come up with a happy medium, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that always gets raised when you talk about just axing the legality of guns entirely is what about the hunters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a particular fan of hunting.
I mean, yeah. Here's the thing for me about that line of argument is that I just think that people's lives are more important than your ability to hunt animals. That's
Controversial opinion.
I know. It's crazy, but that's how I feel. But again, like if we can actually like talk about like reasonable gun control, then I'm not, and it's effective, then that's like, then why are we talking about whether or not I want to take your guns away? Like I just don't want people to die anymore. And sorry.
So I guess to get sort of back to your story a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry.
And maybe I'm playing a little bit of like a devil's advocate role here.
Oh, good.
But so people always say that or not people, really just the NRA always likes to say that the only thing stopping a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Do you feel like if you had a gun in that situation, would it have been any different?
No, I don't want it. I didn't want a gun. I didn't want a gun any second of that. Like the only thing that would have made that situation better, the only thing that would have ended the circumstances that created like this whole thing was for the gun not to be there. Like the entire time I thought about it. Like I was like, oh, well, what do I want their gun? Not even just like a gun of my own, but like, do I want their gun? Do I want to take their gun from them somehow? Like do some like jujitsu move and like get their gun away from them, which is impossible. And like, no, what is the outcome there? The outcome is most likely that somebody's going to die. Like and all I wanted was to escape. I didn't want to kill them. I didn't want them to die. I didn't want like, I think, like, I feel really strongly that one of the things that saved my life that night was my ability to empathize with them and, like, trying to figure out what they wanted and how I could best, like, help them get what they wanted without hurting me.
Right.
And that is, I don't know, like, that a gun would not have helped that process.
Mm-hmm.
A gun would not have done anything to help that process. It would have made things far worse. It would have escalated the situation to a point where it was far more likely that somebody would get hurt. And there's a possibility that that person wouldn't be me, but I couldn't bank on that. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I think that idea comes from, it comes on the tails of this sort of, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's purely American, but it is certainly, like, endemic to, like, American sort of attitudes towards violence, is that, like, I don't know. I felt very guilty afterwards for feeling like I didn't do enough to protect myself.
That you should have fought back.
That I should have fought. That I should have been willing to engage in violence in order to protect myself. Not that. That's a bad shadow. Sorry. Going back and forth between talking about traumatic incidents and
drawing an adorable
little turtle. He's so cute.
He is very cute.
Little Sebastian. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guilt involved in thinking that you should have done something more. And by the definition that you have, or that we have, for what we should have done, or, like, what I could have done, is all, like, violent. It's all, this sort of self-defense form of violence. Whereas, like, if I actually look back and I'm like, honest with myself, I was doing everything that I could to save my life, and it was successful. Like,
right.
But what I was doing was using, like, all of my faculties in order to, like, mitigate the circumstances so that I wouldn't get hurt.
Right. Well, but I think you were also doing what I believe law enforcement encourages you to do in those situations,
yes.
which is to give them what they want.
Yes.
Right? I don't think law enforcement says fight back.
No, but the narrative and like, the media and everything
right.
says, like, you should fight back.
Yeah.
Why didn't you fight back? And it's like, well, because they had a gun to my, like, side and told me that they were going to leave me stinking in an alleyway. So, like, that's why I didn't fight back. Sorry, babe.
No.
I think my turtle's about done. Wow, this did not take as long as I thought. I don't know.
You could give him a little bit of background.
Oh, I'm going to give him background.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Have him splash around in some water, like heading towards the ocean or something.
Yeah, he's got to head towards the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be a good turtle boy and head towards the ocean.
Make sure no gullies get him.
No gullies are going to get this little guy.
No way.
No way. Yeah, I'm just going to give that a beach.
So survivor's guilt is a thing.
Survivor's guilt is definitely a thing. But I think it's exacerbated by, like, this idea of, like... Oh, whoops. The only thing that is, like... Hold on. I'm going to go back. There we go. The only thing that is, like, a thing to do, like, the only types of actions that are considered actions are, like, violent actions or dramatic sort of, like, physical actions. And yeah,
that's one narrative.
That's a narrative that's very commonly pushed. And I just find it really very frustrating, I guess. It certainly didn't help me.
Right.
And I honestly, like, I thought about using it a lot. I thought about, like, what I should have done, and should I have been, like, should I have fought back at the very beginning? That would have saved me, 2 hours of time. But, like, I don't know. I felt really, really guilty about this, of course, because that's what I do. But one of the things that kind of helped me come to terms with my guilt over, getting in the car in the first place. They pulled their gun out, and the girl grabbed me and forced me into their car. And, like, I know you're not supposed to get in the car. Like, that's rule number 1. You're not supposed to get in the car. And I did. And, like, and that was something that I was like, I felt responsible for. But then, once the cops actually took my case seriously, which is a whole other story, like, they said that another woman had been abducted in much the same manner the next day, I think it was. Or the next evening, or the previous evening. I
think it was 1 or 2 days afterwards.
Yeah. And she fought back at the very beginning, and they clocked her on the head. And she ended up in the hospital. Right. And I feel not great taking solace in somebody else's pain. And I don't think for a second that she deserved to get hit in the skull. But I, like, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know. That was the kind of, I don't even know what to say about that, but, like, it's just a whole lot of things that that go through your head, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, like, but then, one of the other things that I think gets talked about a lot. Good job, Marcel. He's walking across my keyboard right now, so if my computer did anything funky in those last 2 seconds, that would be why. But, no, one of the things that I feel is, like, also fairly common. What is he doing?
Oh, he's just clawing out your jacket.
Marcel, that's my jacket. Don't do that.
Hey, fur boy.
Aw, squeaker.
Mm-hmm.
No, one of the things that I feel like, people say, oh, like, they would have just carried it out with a knife instead, or with, like, you can use anything as a weapon, and, like, blah, blah, blah. And, like, while that's true, there are certain things that, like, a gun does that other things just don't do.
Oh, you mean that people could assault other people with
like
knives or just physical intimidation?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
And, like, that's true. Like, they could, but the gun makes it a lot easier. Like, you don't have to worry. Okay, I'm not going to put myself in the shoes of somebody, like, actually committing a crime. But, like, God, my beach scene is just terrible. But that's okay. I'll just leave it be.
I think it looks like a really refreshing beach to splash around in.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's not my favorite beach, but my turtle is very happy.
Your turtle is Sebastian?
Sebastian.
Sebastian looks very happy.
Sebastian is very happy with his life, his lot in life, which is interesting because his mother just abandoned him.
Well, that's another issue.
Yeah. Anyhow. But yeah, I mean, just to wrap up, like, the gun does something, because, like, there's no... What are you going to do if somebody pulls a gun on you? Like, what are your options? It limits your options to, like, next to nothing. Like,
Sure, this is why I think law enforcement tells you to just give them what they want.
Yeah.
That's with the assumption that someone is pulling a gun on you.
Yeah. Like,
your options are much, I think...
much smaller than... I mean, a knife is bad. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Again, I'm not playing, like, you know, like, trauma one-upsmanship. But, like, you know, distance and speed and, like, all of these things factor into your risk assessment of, like, what can I do to, like, extricate myself from this situation. Like, there's not much that you can do.
Right. Bullets catch up to you.
Yeah, bullets will catch up to you. The speed... Like, I was literally on the front steps of my friend's apartment. Mm-hmm. Literally on the front steps of her apartment. And, like... But could I turn and run and get up into her apartment and open the door before he pulled his gun out of his, like, hip and shot me? No. That's not possible.
Right.
I mean, could I have run down the street and called for help before he was able to do that? Like, maybe I would have reached somebody. But was it worth that risk when all that they wanted from me was clearly money? Like, and that was just a huge part of everything. Like, was it worth the risk because they just wanted my money? Oh, right. I don't know. Anyhow, this has been...
But you're okay now.
I am okay. Now. I am. I'm okay. You can get better.
Yeah.
It took a while.
Well, we should talk about getting better and...
Yes.
How that is going, has went.
Has gone. I haven't had a flashback in a while, so that's good. Flashbacks are a terrifying thing if you've never had one.
We can save it for another episode.
We'll save that for another episode, though. And for now, I think I'm going to just say that I am fine. I think that our country needs to reevaluate certain priorities when it comes to guns. But other than that, this is Little Sebastian. No, he's not Little Sebastian.
That's a very different show.
That's a very different thing.
We do appreciate that property.
Yes, very much so. Sebastian.
He's adorable.
Yay!
Thanks for talking to me about guns.
You're welcome. It was super fun.
But you're fine?
I'm fine.
I'm fine too.
Okay, good. And Sebastian is fine as well. Right, Sebastian?
I think he's fine.
Yeah, I think so. Probably. I in my fiction that I have created, he has made it into the ocean.
He's not quite there.
He's made it. In my fiction that I have created, in the universe where he exists, he has made it into the ocean, and he is swimming and learning and being a really, really, really cool little turtle.
So he's fine too.
He's fine too. And Marcel, are you fine?
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay, he's fine. Good. All right. We're all fine, and I am an awkward person and don't know how to sign off, so I admit that I am an awkward person, and that is my sign off.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
What's next, little man?